video, we looked at what a pip is, and I got to understand that a pip in forex trading is the unit of measurement to express the change in value between two currencies. Okay, so just like how you can move from your bed to your door and take 10 steps, if price is moving from, let's say, from 10 to 100, that could also be 10 steps. But now we don't say steps in forex, we don't say steps, we say pips. Okay, so the pip is they call it, what is it? No, let me check. It has a, oh, it's something price in points or so. I think that's what it means. So yeah, in forex we call it pip. Okay, and then we looked at pip count. So for every market has a pip count. Now that pip count shows, or it helps to identify, or helps to, yeah, it helps you to know where to calculate your pip value from. So for Euro USD, for example, it has 4 decimal places. So any of these figures here can be the pip counts. Okay, any of these decimal places here can be the pip counts. But for Euro USD, according to baby pips, it is 0.0001 or 0.0001, which is the fourth decimal place. Okay, so it means when the price moves from 1.1050 to 1.1051, that's a pip. When it moves from this zero to, let's say, a 2, that's 2 pips. But if the pip count for your USD was 0.001, which is the third decimal place instead, then it means when price moves from 1.1050 to 1.1060, that's now a pip instead. Okay. And if it moves from 1.1050 to 1.1080, that's rather 3 pips. Okay, with a pip where the pip count is from the third decimal place. Okay, we also looked at the pipettes, and we're saying that for this, for example, since the pip count is from the third decimal place, then what do we call the decimal, or the value after the pip count? So that's what we call the pipettes. And I was saying that between 0 and 1, like in even our reality or life here, between 0 and 1, we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, blah, 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 all the way to 1. Okay. So all the values after would handle between the 0 and 1. Okay. So if price moves from 5 to 6, that's a pip. But all the values, sometimes you might have price moving from 1.105 to 1.1055. Okay, so with that, you can see that the 5 is still constant. The 5 is still the same, which means we are still like, it means we've not even crossed 1 pip. It means price has not moved 1 pip. But if it's moved from 1.1050 to 1.1055, then that's a 0.5 pip movement. Okay, so that's like a half pip, or like a half step, in other words. Okay, so that's what we call a pipette. Now let's go into the chart, and then so we're looking at the pip counts for GBP JPY. So now we're coming to calculate, or we're coming to look at how to read the, or to identify the number of pips and all those things on GBP JPY, which is the British pound against the Japanese yen. And Google says the pip count is 0.01, which means the pip count is from the second decimal place. And you can see here on GPJPY, it has 3 decimal places, so which means the pip count will be from the second. Okay, and you can see when you look at the values, if like, you can ignore the chart and just look at the values here, you see it's changing. You see the 5 is still constant, it's not moving, but you can see the pipettes, or like the pipette was moving from 1, 2, 4. Okay, and now it's on 5. So when it moves from 5 to 4, that's a pip movement. But decimal place, or like the third decimal place moving, constitutes the pipette, or it adds, or it gives it the points, like the points X. You know, when I say points X, like maybe the steps is like maybe 1.7. So instead of like 1 pip is 1 whole step. Okay. So the 0.7 would be like maybe, or let's say 0.5. So that's like a half step. So the pipettes would, or like the pipettes would handle fractional movements. Like, anyways, so let's look at GBPY, for example. Let's take so I'm using this line here to okay, so let me do it this way. Okay, so let's say price moves from here all the way to this level, comes down, goes up, comes down, and up again. So we are looking at this price movement, okay, and price moved from here, so this price level, so or let me say the markets moved from 198.586 to here 198.716. So it moved, there was an up move, okay, from 198.586 all the way to 198.716 before the market sold for a bit, or before sellers stepped in and pushed the price down to where they push the price down to 198.68. But let's look at the first two values and then look at the number of pips or how far price moved when maybe this whole thing started, this whole move here started. Okay. So we are looking at this low and this high. So there's like a swing low and a swing high. That's what we usually call structures like this. Okay, so 198.586. So that's where the price currently started from. And since the pip count is from the alpha, since the pip count is from the second decimal place, it means that okay, so let's tackle it from here. Let me say open. So this is the open price and then let's say again. Okay. And let's say closing price. And then let's give this 198.566. Okay. And then let's say the high. So the highest points, let's say it's a candlestick. Okay. So we are looking at maybe the attributes of one particular candlestick. So this is the highest points. So that's the open price, closing price. And we have the high, which is the highest points price reached in that particular time frame. Let's give it 198.600. Maybe the six confused. Let me make it 596. And then the low would be, let's say 198.526. Cool. So because I don't want to make this complex, now yeah, here go MasterCard. Okay, so let's start calculating the pip. So the first thing we look at is the number of pips between the opening price and the closing price. Now for GBP, JPY, we identified that so we identified that the pip count is from the second decimal place, which is the 0.02. Okay, and then that means the third decimal place would be the pipettes. So from the open price to the closing price is 2 pips. Okay, because price moved from 8 to 6. Now the difference between 8 and 6 is 2. Okay, so that's 2 pips. But the 6 remained the same. The third decimal place was the same. So there was no 2.2 or 2.4. If this was to change from maybe 5, let's say to 562. Okay, so now the whole calculation will be different. So even though price moved from 198.586 to 198.562, now it's not 2 pips anymore. Now it's 2 point something or maybe 1 point something. So from 8 to 6 is 2. All right. But this is how I like to do the calculation. when the first values are the same. So you can see the 198.5 and the 198.5 here, they are the same. So it's like you can, let me use, uh, let me use this. So it's like I'm taking out the values that are similar and I'm looking at the odd ones. Okay. So now I just do the calculation. So if I'm doing this calculation in my head, I'm just looking at the 86 and the 62. Now 86 minus 62 is 24. Okay. And because I know the pip movement is supposed to be 2 point something or 1 point something, it means that if I'm getting 86 minus 62 giving me 24, then it means the pip count, or sorry, the pip or the number of pips that price moved from the opening price to the closing price will now be 2.4 pips. Why? Because from 8 to 6 alone is supposed to give you 2 pips. However, the pipettes or the decimal place after your pip count is not the same. So it has changed. Initially, when it was 6, it would be giving us 2 pips, because now with the same thing like this, when you do 86 minus 66, you get 20. Okay, but in other words, actually supposed to be 2 pips, because now you know where you are calculating your pip value from. But because right now the the it's not 66 anymore, or like the decimal place is not the same. It's now maybe 64. So 86 minus 64 is 24. And that's how come we get 2.4. Okay. If it was maybe let's try, let's see, from 86 to 51. From 86 to 51. Now, this would give us 86 minus 51 is 35. Yeah, so it's 35, which means now, it's not supposed to be 35 per se because of the pip count. So it's now going to be 3.5 pips. Okay, so now price has moved 3.5 pips from 198.586 to 198.551 is, oh, this thing doing, it's 3.5 pips. Makes sense. Now, so that's it for this. You can see the 198.5, 198.5 is all the same. So if, let's say, we even want to, so between the opening price and the closing price, it's 3.5 pips. Okay, that's the distance. Now, the opening price from 198.586 to the high, or the highest point price reached is just a pip. Okay, because if you look at it, is 86 minus 96, I think you get negative 10. But you see, it's negative. So it doesn't really, the negative there doesn't really change. It shows that it's still 1. Okay. So that's like 1 pip. Okay. Because we know the pip count is from the second decimal place. So from 8 to 9 is 1. The difference is 1. Okay. And the 6 and 6 is the same. So that one, nothing changes. But if this 6 here was maybe 1 instead, now you can do 86 minus 91. What would you even get? Something like 0.5. So the difference between 198.586 and 198.591 would now be 0.5 pips. Okay. Yeah, I think it will be 0.5 pips and no longer 1 pip. Why? Because price, before price gets to 1 pip, it has to go to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, blah, 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 blah. But because the pips here, like the pipettes, is not the same. It's not 6. You see, this is, let me even use that thing to scratch. With the highlights or the brush. Okay. Yeah, so from 86 to 91 is 5. And it basically means that before price gets to 1 pip, it means it has to move from 86 to 96, but it did not get to 96. It means that it is not fully, it's not a full step, it's not a full just, it's not a full step, so it's not a 1 pip move. So it's a point something. And 86 minus 91 give you negative 5. So you take out the negative out there, and then keep the 5, which means it's a 0.5. Okay, because you know it's not 1 yet. So that's how you can calculate pips offhand when the values are somewhat similar. Now let's make it a little bit more complex. Okay, fine. Let's do between the high and the low. So between the high and the low would give us how many pips? You answer that. So the 198 is the same. 198 or 5 is the same. So you just look at the 9.6 and the 2.6. So between 9 and 6, how many, what's the distance? Or what's the number of pips between the 9.6 and the 2.6? Right. Okay, I don't know if it's still on the phone. Okay, so the difference will be 7. Okay, because we are calculating our number of pips from the second decimal place, and price has moved from 596. So it has dropped. Okay, it has dropped from 9 all the way down to 2, which means price has dropped from 198.596 to 198.526 by 7 pips. Okay, so yeah, so that's how you can calculate number of pips. Now let's like I was saying, let's make it a little bit more complex, and let's use the values from here. Yeah, so let's look at these two values. So the 198, the 586, and the 198.7.716. Okay. So now this will be a little bit complex. Okay. So all right, so let's put those values down. 198.586 to 198.716. Okay. Now, obviously, you can see that from 198.586 to 198.716, it means price has shot up. There has been a rise. And you can see the rise. I mean, it's obviously it's clear here. So price or bias push the price from this level to that level. Okay. And what we want to know is the number of pips it moved to get there, or it took to get there. Now, since the pip count is from the second decimal place, this is what we do. So with using the same trick, so now there are tools where you can use to calculate this thing, right? But sometimes it's long. When you're trying to analyze, you don't really want to look at so many things. So you can just, like I was saying, you can just, what I do is I just take the first numbers and look at the similarities. So 198 here and 198 here are the same. So now I'll just scratch those off and then scratch these ones two up. Okay, now we are left with 586 and 716. Now this is what we do. The pip count is from the second decimal place. However, so let's say the second decimal place is the ones column, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, that thing you learn in class 1. Yeah, so let's say the pip count is the ones column. It means that the decimal place before your pip count or before the ones column is like the 10th decimal place. Okay, so it means that any price shifts at the 10th decimal place, but even let me do this well. So uh-huh. So every price movement at the 10th decimal place or at the decimal place before your pip counts or before your second decimal place would give you a 10th value. So, okay, so now this is what I would do. Now I will take these values out like this because I've already scratched out the similar values between the two. Now I'll take the 586 and I will take the 716. Now this is what I'll do. My pip count is from 8, right? And my pipette is the last decimal place. So the pipette will be giving you the points, this points, that's points, blah, 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 like the fractional value. So now I'll now rewrite this whole price in my head. I'll rewrite this whole price and put the decimal place here because any movement of the pipette will give me a half, will give me a fractional value. Same thing here. Okay. And then now I can do the subtraction, or I can look at the difference, or I can calculate the difference in my head. So now 58 minus 71, or 71 minus 58 would give us 13. So now that is a 13 pip move. So let me put this here. So this will be equal to 13. So 50. So between 71.6 and 58.6 is 13. However, if this was to change from 6 to let's say 2, it means that now you have to calculate 71.2, and I mean you have to look at the distance between 71.2 and 58.6, and that will be um I don't think it will be 13.4, but actually this will calculate. Okay, so it would not be 13. I think it would be yeah, it will not be 13.4, so it will be 12. It will be 12 point something. And let me explain that in so that would be 12 points. I think 12.6. Yeah, I think 12.6. Let me see that. I don't know if I have a calculator on here. Okay, so the calculator are great. So so sometimes I use a calculator when I can't do these small place values in my head quickly. So 71.2 minus 58.6. Yeah, so 12.6. Yeah, so I was right. So that's the number of people movement. So instead of it being 13, you see that because the pipette was different or this value changed, it means it couldn't be a 13 pip, a full 13 pip move anymore. So the pipette gave us a fraction. But if this was 6, it would obviously make sense that the number of pips will now be 13. And like I was saying, the price, there was also a change at the 10th column. So that's how come we have it's been 13. So right now we don't, I mean, obviously the second decimal place changed, but also the first decimal place as well changed. And the first decimal place, we looked at it as our 10th decimal, as our 10th column. Okay, if we look at the pip counts as the ones column, then the first decimal place or the decimal place before, right before the pip counts would be our 10th column. So that's how we have, so this would be 12.6, a 12.6 pip move. Okay, so right now this 12.6 is basically this, and now we can take out the scratches, or I mean, sorry, what we used to strike through the values. So basically from 198.586 to 198.716 is a 12.6 pip move, basically. Okay, now let's look at one more example before we look at take profits and lot size. Yeah, so I'll leave this and then let's add this particular. So good. So price moved from 198.586 to 198.716. And then what happened? The price fell. Okay, there was a drop in the market. So from that 716, it dropped all the way to 637. Now let's look at our new price, or where price currently is, and how many pips price dropped by. Okay, so that would be 198.716. So with this thing, it's not anything complex, and this is not even the main part, right? But the more you look at the chart, the more you calculate these things in your head, the more you get familiar with it, it becomes easy. You just like look at price changes and calculate the pips easily in your head without having to go to a tool, because the market is always moving. So sometimes going to use, when I say a tool, there are certain sites that you can use to calculate the number of pips and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so 198.716 to 198.637. Same thing, we use the same formula, or like, yes, my strategy, or like the way I calculate, squash out or strike through the similar values. Um, And so we are looking at 716, and then we are looking at the 637. So now I would mentally take these numbers out, do all these things in my head, and then the 637. Amazing. And now we know where our pip. So now, yeah, it's like you're basically you're restructuring, or like you're restructuring or rearranging these values. So you can have a ones, a 10, basically to help you do the subtraction and then help you to know the distance. So the pipette is the 6, right? The 6 here and the 7 here. So I'll put, since the pipette is given a fractional value, it means I'll put my decimal place right before it here, and then decimal place right before this here as well. Now, when you subtract 71.6 and 63.7, what do we get? Calculator. Yeah, so 71.6 minus 63.7, that's 7.9. So that's a 7.9 pip move. Okay. Yeah, so it dropped by 7.9 pips. Okay, so I'll just write that here. So this is it. Okay. So basically, this is how we calculate pips. You identify your pip count, and then you start calculating from there. Yeah, so now look at pips, pip counts. Now, so okay, so now the importance of this is when you take a trade, you are making money in pips, because when you go to my channel, you see, oh, price is moving 20 pips in profits. What does it mean? Price is moving 100 pips in profits. What does it mean? It means something. Although in here, maybe 100 pips was giving us like 108.60. So many other things come into play. So we have something we call the lot size. We have lots. So when you take a trade, the lot size determines how much you're making or how much you're losing. And that value is calculated with the number of pips. So if, for instance, using the same steps thing. So let's say from your bed to your door, you take 10 steps. You take 10 steps. But I mean, you're an average human. So maybe your foot would be like your foot size, like an average foot size, right? But for a baby, the the number of steps would be different, or would be more. The distance would be higher, like it would be more. Do you understand? So that's where the lot size comes in. Basically, lot size is the. Okay, let's look at what lot size is. We have barely 10 minutes to end the meeting. But once we look at lot size, we've already handled pips. You'd understand stop loss and take profit. So while I was waiting for this to go, let me explain take profits. So as you're waiting for this, let me explain take profit. So whenever you take a trade, okay, and you're in profits, sometimes you might not be on the markets the whole time. So you might want price to automatically close for you when it gets to a certain number of pips. So let's say you decide to take your profits at 30 pips. Yeah, so we're looking at lot sizes, and I was saying with the take profit basically means price. Okay, so I was saying when you take a trade, sometimes you might not be on the charts the whole time. When you take an active trade, you can close the trade manually, or you can automatically close the trade. So by automatically closing the trade, when you take a trade, when you check MetaTrader, you see there's TP. So when you check MetaTrader, you see TP, you see SL, TP for take profits. It means that if you decide to take your profits at 30 pips, you have to calculate 30 pips away from where you took the trade and then put the price value there, you see how it says on MetaTrader. So when you put a price value there, you'd see that, okay, when price gets to, let's say 30 pips from, maybe you took a trade at 10 CDs, okay, and 30 pips is 40. There's a 40 CD. So let's say that you took a buy and you're expecting that the price would shoot or the price would rise to 40 CDs. But maybe after 40 CDs, you don't really think you'll continue buying. So you feel 40 CDs would be a good place to close your trade. But you might maybe have something to do that particular day, or maybe the network is full enough for some reason. So you set your TP or your take profits. You calculate 30 pips away from where you took the trade, which is your 10 CDs. And 30 pips away was probably 40. Okay. And then so now you put the price there. So you put TP at 40. So it means that when price gets to 40 CDs, it will automatically close the trade for you with your profit. Now, how do you know how much profit you made or lost? That's where the lot size comes in. So lot size is the size of your trade. So let me use, I usually like to use this example. If you are someone that trades, if you're someone that trades in gold, so let's say you buy, okay, let me use gold. Let's say, what basic thing can we use? Let's say you trade phones, okay, you buy and sell iPhones. And let's say we are looking at the iPhone 16. So let's say an iPhone 16 is going for 20,000. Now you buy one iPhone 16. Let's say you have a plug. Okay, so you get the iPhone 16 from your plug at 15,000 and you come and sell it at 20,000. So you are making profit of 5,000. Now that is just on one iPhone. Okay, but when you take, let's say you buy 5 iPhones. Okay, it means that now you are buying 5 iPhones, each one at 15,000, which means the 5 would be 15 times 5 would be 500. What, 75? Yeah. So now you are buying 5 iPhones at 75,000. And how much are you selling? So you're selling each of them at 20,000. So if you're selling each of them at 20,000, it means 20 times 5 is 100,000. So now the difference between your cost price and your selling price will give you your profits or your loss. I mean, when you know how to do that calculation. And yeah, so it means you make a profit of 25,000. Now, why 25,000? Because the size of your trade has increased. The size of the the size of the commodity or the size of or whatever it is that you are trading has now increased. You have increased it. So if you are increasing your lot size, it means you have more capital. Do you understand? Because initially you're buying just one iPhone at 15,000, but now you're buying 5 iPhone 16s, and you need to have 75,000 to buy those 5 iPhone 15s. Hey, sorry, those 5 iPhone 16s. Okay. However, the more you buy, the more profit you make. Okay, so that's how lot sizes work. And with lot sizes, we have standard micro lots, mini lots, blah, 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 blah. So micro lots is 1,000. Okay, so 1,000 units of the base currency. Mini lots is 10,000 units of the base currency. Standard lots is 100,000 units of the base currency. And now let me show you how this works. So, sorry. So we have standard lots. In fact, let me copy and paste so I don't take long. Okay, so 100,000 units. Yeah, so 100,000 units of the base currency. And when you go to MetaTrader, so you can either, so when you're taking a trade, you can either punch in, you can use these lots, standard lot, mini lots, or micro lots. Okay, so with the standard lots, let's open what it said. So blah, blah, blah. I've already explained this part, but you can go and read it on your own. And they also explain the whole calculation, pip, lot size, blah, 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 blah. So here, standard lots, okay. I don't think I'm seeing what I'm looking for here. Okay. So when you go to MetaTrader, you take a trade. There are two things you need to do. Okay, so first off, you are taking a buy. So you click on the buy. Now, though, you need to also state the number of lots or like the size of your trade. So the lot size you want to use.